Hey guys, Bump here, bring you this 9.1 Survival DK DPS guide. I will be covering everything that's changing with both the DK DPS specs when we move into 9.1 and everything you need to know as a returning player when it comes to talents, when it comes to new systems, when it comes to legendaries, all those kind of things, just so you can jump into 9.1 and instantly know what's best. This is not like a beginner's guide or a rotation guide. I will make new ones updated for 9.1 contents later, so do stay tuned for those. So this is essentially for all of you who played before and just need to know, what do I need to know to catch up. All right, I will start with looking at Unholy, talking through that, and then we'll go on to Frost, and then we look at the shared systems. So for Unholy, only thing that changed is that AMZ got nerfed. It's a bit sad. It's quite a significant nerf, but AMZ is still very much powerful. When it comes to talents, we run the same thing as in 9.0.5. For raid, we do pick up the normal single target build. We can always swap out all will serve for clone shadows for raid bosses where there's intermittent cleave, just like Stone Legion Generals in the previous raid, or when there's just loads of downtime, then we can also find value in Clawing Shadows. For Mythic Plus, the build looks very similar. It's actually the one I'm running in this keystone you can see here. We pick up Clawing Shadows in the first row, and then everything is the same. I absolutely love this build. It's so nice to be able to pop down Deafening K and just stand at range to cleave, just like I'm doing here. For Legendaries, there is actually a change when it comes to where we put them. But first of all, for raiding, we pretty much always pick up Deadliest Coil when it's a single target fight, when we need that priority damage, and then we use Frenzy Monstrosity for any cleave fight, or we want to get a good log and like pad that kind of going. For Mythic Plus, it's always Frenzy Monstrosity. It's just way too good. Covenants, nothing changed. We run the Necrolord Covenant. AMA Soulbind will be the go-to one. It's getting some nice buffs in 9.1, and I really can't see anything being competitive compared to AMA. For Mythic Plus, we still have Venter as a technically better option. The Swarming Mist Epidemic Spam is just way too good to give up. For the crafting slots, there's actually been a change for Legendaries. So due to the fact that we're getting a new system called Domination Sockets, we have much less options when it comes to where to put the Legendaries. This has one impactful change. It's that the Deadliest Coil, instead of going on the chest, now goes in the back. Frenzy Monstrosity can still go on the legs, completely fine having it there. If you want to be really min-maxy though, you should actually swap the missives on the Frenzy Monstrosity. So instead of going Haste and Mastery, like we do on Deadliest Coil, we run Mastery and Crit. It's because we generally run Frenzy Monstrosity in AoE scenarios, and then Crit becomes a bit more value there. That's the underlying reason. Finally, for Unholy, we got some new conduits, or more importantly, we have access to a third potency conduit slots in certain soulbinds. Just to iterate the priority when it comes to conduits, we pick up Eternal Hunger as a first priority. It's just way better than everything else. We don't follow with Convocation, and finally we pick up Embrace Death. That's for pure single target. When we look at AoE scenarios, we can replace both Convocation of Dead and Embrace Death with your Covenant specific potency conduit, or the new generic one, which gives you a passive strength whenever you're healed. That's also a good option for AoE. I feel like it's quite fun to just run Convocation. It's quite nice to get low cooldown Apocalypse, but it's up to you. You can pick whatever, and it's going to be quite fine. Right, done with Unholy. Let's move over to Frost. Same thing here. We only got AMZ getting nerfed, no other changes. However, when we look at talents, we actually do get a bit of a shift. So Obliteration scales much better with a third potency, and this means that Obliteration is the go-to single target raiding build. It simply brings superior single target damage. This also means by extension that the Korean Covenant becomes much more interesting for raiding. So I therefore recommend running Korean for raiding with the Obliteration build. Breath of Zaragoza still has its place. It's much better in AoE and Cleave. So if you're looking at Mythic Plus, we run Breath of Zaragoza there. In the raid, whenever there's more than one target, Breath of Zaragoza becomes the better build. Necrolord is what you're looking for if you're running Breath. It's simply the most versatile choice. And we usually tend to run the MNI Soulbound there with a triple potency. When it comes to Legendaries, same thing as before. We run Cold Terrors for pure single target, especially with Obliteration. It's also better for Breath of Zaragoza to run Cold Terrors, but Rage of the Frozen Champion is definitely a good pick. And as soon as we start adding targets, Rage of the Frozen Champion is simply better for Breath of Zaragoza. We run it both in Raid and Mythic Plus. When it comes to Mythic Plus and Obliteration, it's Biting Cold. Really no other option there. It doesn't synergize well with Rage of the Frozen Champion, and Biting Cold is just, Cold Terrors is simply a bit too much single target and too little AoE. We get some recrafting for the Legendaries here as well. We put both Cold Terrors and Rage of the Frozen Champion on the ring slot, and we move over Biting Cold to the waste slot. Same reason we got these new Domination Sockets, I'll get to that later, but they make it much more restrictive where you can actually put your Legendaries. For potency, we have Everfrost being by far the best one. We then have Accelerated Cold as a good second one, and Unleashed Frenzy as the third. And this kind of works in every scenario and in every build. They're completely fine. For AoE, you can opt in using the Covenant specific Conduit as a replacement for Unleashed Frenzy or Accelerated Cold. And then the new generic one is also a good one for AoE. Pretty much any of those four as your second and third conduit in a Mythic Plus works well, as long as you have Everfrost as your first one. Now, I mentioned this before, but let me touch on this in much more detail. We have a new system called Domination Sockets. We have gear from the raid dropping. It's only the raid here. They drop these Domination Sockets, and then we can put these Domination Gems into those sockets. And this is kind of like the new 9.1 system in a way. So there are a total of 9 of these Domination Gems. You can divide them into 3 sets. The sets are called Unholy, Frost, and Blood. Most confusingly for us Death Knights, unfortunately. Each of these sets have a DPS gem, a tank gem, and a healing gem. And if you equip all 3 of those in a set, you get a set bonus. It's important to note that the gems themselves are uniquely equipped, so you can't just equip 3 of the DPS gems of the Unholy set, for instance. Now, Unholy and Frost, we have the exact same priority here, and it's really quite simple. For raiding, we aim to get the Unholy 3 set. It's simply very, very good. For Mythic Plus, the set pieces don't work, so we don't get set mechanics, so there we just simply go for the 3 DPS gems. We prioritize getting the Frost one, followed by the Unholy one, and then the Blood one. And then you can pick up the Blood Tank gem and the Blood Healing gem as well for your 4th and 5th slot. They are not as important, like they don't add any DPS, so it's kind of fine if you don't put them on, but it's technically better, so why wouldn't you? Both Frost and Unholy do get 4 new Legendaries, 1 for each Covenant. None of these are good. They're really quite bad, and I really wouldn't recommend picking them up. So you can simply safely ignore that and move on to everything else that's new. Now, I think that was everything I wanted to cover. I hope this was helpful if you're returning and you're looking to figure out what's going on. I hope this gave you a good overview. Do stay tuned for my more in-depth guide, so both the beginner and rotation guide. I will cover everything about rotation and whatnot. Nothing much has actually changed, but I feel like it's still good to have an up-to-date guide which people can reference and not question whether or not it's old content or old information. Do leave a comment down below if you have any questions or anything to say. You can always find me on the Acros Discord. You can PM me if you want. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Leave an upvote or downvote, depending on what you thought about this video, and do consider subscribing. It helps a ton, and it'll possibly also helps you by being up to date to the relevant information out there. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more content. Thank you.